Hello, this is Carla Metzdorf. I am going live today to talk about panic attacks. I'm just trying to bring it all together, and I believe it's done. I am live. I'm live on Facebook, and I'm live on YouTube. It worked. I've been having so many issues with this, but I think it finally worked. Hello. Just in case you did not hear that, my name is Carla Metzdorf. I am admin to the group Overcoming Anxiety for stressed out moms who've had enough. And I'm also an anxiety coach. And every Thursday at 3 o'clock, I go live to talk to you about what you can do to grow an awareness about anxiety and gain a lot of insight so that you can implement it and use it to overcome, because that is the goal, to overcome anxiety. As you come on, please say hello. Hi, Lisa. Everyone say hello as you come on so that I know who's with me today. So today, what I want to talk about are panic attacks, because that is something that I know a lot of moms in this group suffer, panic. So I want to talk about how, when we have power, but when we have high anxiety, panic, we lose our power. So how do we stop that panic and start feeling peace in our lives again? So I really want to dive into that. And the way that I like to start a lot of my life trainings is with definitions, because I want us to be on the same page. So my definition of panic attack is the fear of fear. Now, you may say, what? And not understand that. Hi, Candy. But see, when you start having, let's say, these feelings inside of you, let's say you have a lot of fear of something, all right? And you have these intense feelings inside of you. Then you start fearing the feelings that you have, the thoughts that come into your head, and it's so intense that sometimes you think, I need to go to the doctor because what's wrong with me? And you feel like you're going crazy. That's panic. That's the fear of the fear that you're feeling. Does that make sense? Does that sound like a good definition? Is that understandable? I had panic, and I suffered from panic for many years. The first time I felt panic was when I was about 11 years old. I lost like 3 people in my life, like family members, friends. And at 11 years old, I think that was the first time I had the concept of I'm going to die someday, you know? And my body reacted with all this intense fear. The thing was, I only felt it at nighttime for whatever reason, because during the day I was this happy-go-lucky 11-year-old. I went to school and I hung out with my friends, but then at nighttime, I would be in my bed shaking, violently shaking. My whole bed would be shaking, sweating. I remember a lot of sweat and shaking, my heart racing. And I swear I didn't sleep at all week, that whole week that this happened. And I was 11. I didn't know what I was experiencing. I really didn't. I did not go to my parents about what was happening to me. I just know I had these intense feelings, and it only happened at nighttime. It was the weirdest thing. But as quickly as these things came on, they left. All of a sudden, I didn't experience it anymore. So I thought, all right, maybe I had some kind of like virus or disease. I was 11. I didn't know, right? So from the time I was about 12 to 31, I was, I had high anxiety. I did have anxiety. I worried a lot. Looking back now, I had health anxiety. I had a lot of health anxiety. I didn't know that at the time, but no matter what I was feeling in my teenage years, my 20s, I I was able to function and I was doing okay. I could have done better, but I was doing okay. Got married, had children. At 31 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer. Um, and at first, I was just like, okay, let me do what I got to do to overcome this cancer. And I need to focus on to being cancer free so I could be there for my kids. And I tried my best, but then I found out what my cancer was, and the the operation I needed was very gruesome. It was one of the hardest operations you can have. Um, the recovery was really harsh, and I laid in bed, and I just remember all of a sudden. I mean, I they only kept me overnight. They sent me home, and I started having these violent attacks. I mean, my body started shaking. I started thinking I was dying. I couldn't breathe for the life of me. I was like hyperventilating. It was surreal. I thought I was dying. I seriously thought I was dying. The thing was, I couldn't move. I had hundreds of stitches in my back. Couldn't move. I was losing my sight. It was weird. Um, so my husband rushed me to the hospital, and my heart was literally coming out of my chest. I thought it was going to burst. When I left my house, I'm thinking I'm never going to see my kids again. I'm never going to be in my house again. I thought that was it. Went to the doctor, went to the hospital that I had my operation at. Literally fell into the arms of the attendant. They didn't know I was coming, but like an attendant just happened to be like at the entrance. And he's like, "What's the matter?" I'm like, "I'm having a heart attack." And I fell into his arms. He got me into a room. They hooked me up, and they're like, "Well, yeah, your heart's beating really fast. I mean, you need to calm down." I think my heart was at like 180, which is not great. But they were like, "Yeah, your heart's fine. Otherwise, you're just having a panic attack." I'm like, "A panic attack? What is that?" And that was it. And I was like, "Okay, what do I do?" They're like, "Well, first of all, you need to calm down." And I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "Just take some deep breaths." And I'm like, "All right, try to be calm, try to be calm." How do I do that? I have the monitors hooked up, and I have my husband and my mother and father met me, and they're hovering over me. "All right, Carla, just calm down, calm down." I'm like, it was like one of the hardest things I had to have experienced. And I gave 2 natural births, okay? This was harder, all right? So, all right. I went home, and by the time I got home, I felt better. I felt better, but I was like, is that like, I mean, I was very naive, like, is that it? Is it ever going to happen again? And it did, of course, it did. And as a matter of fact, I started having panic attacks regularly. And that happened for years, years. And when I wasn't panicked, I had high anxiety. My anxiety was just, moments away of a panic attack. So what is the difference? I mean, because I'm talking about anxiety, panic attack. When are you anxious, and when is it panic? What is the difference? And that's a great question, right? Because some of you just don't understand. Because I've asked some of you, have you ever had a panic attack? You're like, well, I don't know. I just don't know. So let's get into that, okay? So we know panic is the fear of fear. But think of an anxiety scale, okay? Think of anxiety from 1 to 10. 1 being very situational, 10 being major panic attacks, okay? So 1 is like, I have a test tomorrow and I'm really like nervous. My stomach is flipping. You may throw up. You may have a little diarrhea. Like it's affecting you. You're nervous about it, but as you go up the anxiety scale, you're adding more emotion, more fear. All right. So when you have anxiety, which is a concern, You're doubting your ability to manage, to cope, whatever it is that you're experiencing, but the less fear you have, you're going to be lower on that anxiety scale. The more fear, the more emotion, the more those thoughts of, can I do this? Can I cope? That's going to push you right up there. Okay. So when you have like immense fear, all right, there you go, you're a panic. Now, the difference being, okay, the intensity of panic is the fear is just immense, whereas anxiety, yeah, I mean, anxiety does not feel good, okay? But when we have anxiety, it's more of like an uneasiness in our body. We can't rest, right? We're not at peace. You don't think, oh my gosh, I need to go to the hospital. I think I'm gonna die, But when you're panicked, oh yeah, I mean, you're there. Your heart's coming out of your chest. Those body symptoms that you feel when you have anxiety, like lower anxiety, they put them like there. You feel them so much more intensely. You might feel a little restriction of your breath when you have anxiety, but when you're panicked, like I felt like I could not breathe. Like I was fighting to take a deep breath. And I thought like I must have an embolism. There must be like I'm going to stop breathing soon. Like it was harsh. So that's one difference. The other difference, gosh, I can't even think. What is the other difference? So, oh my God, what's wrong with me? The other difference is, okay. So when you have anxiety, okay, anxiety is something that builds up over time. All right. So you might have like a stressful situation in your life, and stress built up and becomes chronic. So at first you might be dealing and you might think, okay, I'm dealing with this. You might have some worry. But when that stress and worry builds up and becomes chronic and you start thinking, I can't handle this anymore, you start questioning and having uncertainty about what you're coping with, that becomes anxiety. It's a built up over time, whereas panic is like one day you were fine. And then all of a sudden something like, let's say you felt like this pressure in your chest. Right away, you go, oh, what's that? Am I having a heart attack? And your heart speeds up and you feel like you can't breathe. It's this sudden, intense surge going through your body, intense anxiety, if that makes sense. So anxiety builds up over time. Panic is like, boom, it just hits you. It's like boom, and you get it. The symptoms. I mean, the other thing is really, the other difference is really the symptoms. Symptoms of anxiety, like when we have anxiety, my heart races. But when you have panic, it's not even so much that your heart races. It's like coming out of your chest. I thought I was going to go cold blue. Like it felt like my heart was literally going to jump out of my chest. It was going to beat so fast that it was going to burst. Like I was afraid of that. So your symptoms are so much more intense. You feel them. I mean, the fear is it's just so much. So those are like the differences. Now, like why do we get panicked? Well, the biggest thing that I find we panic about is our health. We seem to be very panicked about what we're feeling and how what's happening inside our bodies and our health. So, and when we are diagnosed with something, we have a hard time accepting that. And we might become we let fear take over because we start really questioning about how are we going to cope with this, how we're going to deal with this. I mean, it's all about control, right? We want to control everything. I mean, we wish we did, right? But when we don't have control, you ladies know, you only have certain things that you have control of, okay? We do have control of what is in our minds. I mean, at first, things might pop up in our minds, but it doesn't have to stay there. We could eventually take control and just be like, oh, it's just a thought, and change what we're thinking. So we do have control what we focus on, right? We have control eventually of how we feel, because what's in our minds really influences how we feel, our emotions, how we feel. So we can change that. And we have control of our reactions to things. All right. So, yeah, we may have that sudden, like a lion is chasing us. We have to run for our lives and we're so scared. And we might start getting panicky, when we start running. But a lot of the times we're not being chased by a lion, right? So we have that big splurge of chemicals in our body. So panic and anxiety kind of happen the same way. Your brain is in this very sensitive, hypervigilant state, okay? So something happens, and with our, our vagus nerve, okay, it has this like sixth sense. Like our central nervous system picks up on she's in danger. Oh my gosh, we got to get her to take some action, all right? So, but the thing is, with your thoughts, all right, you're telling yourself, now at first it may be not so conscious, like you might go, holy cow, there is a lion chasing me, I gotta run. But it happens in such split seconds that you might be like, well, I don't remember thinking that, I just knew I had to run. Because that's how close, that's how sudden it all happens. That's how quickly your body works to help you to survive. It just knows, yeah, a lion equals danger, run. Don't think, just run. But like I said, we don't always have a lion. So what happens when we're looking to run and there's no lion? Okay, this is why it's very important that we understand the mind-body connection, and that we have to take back control of our reactions. Because when we let our central nervous system think that what we're facing is just as dangerous as when a lion chases us, we're always going to get that same reaction. So this is why when I work with you, I help you to understand how to take back control. There are things that you can do to calm down the central nervous system and help the mind to understand that when we face this situation, we don't have a lion chasing us. We don't need to react that way. We can be different, if that makes sense. Ladies, can you put a 1 in the chat just to let me know that this is all making sense? You're all on board with me right now? Can you just let me know if do I need to, go over anything? Can the symptoms stay with you over time, even when you're not anxious? Okay. So Candy, thank you, Leah, for that one confirmation. Okay, so let's talk about the symptoms for a second. Now you're hearing me talk about the fight or flight, right? Your brain is always trying to help you survive, okay? So you will stay in fight or flight mode, okay? You will stay there until you take control, until you are able to talk to yourself in a calm and empowering way. And you can tell the central nervous system, I'm safe. When you can convince the central nervous system, which is the vagus nerve, the brain, to calm everything down. The whole body is working together. They're sending out the SOS. She's in danger, but I'm not really in that kind of danger, So we need to send out the SOS that, like, thanks for trying to protect me, but, I'm not really in that kind of danger. So the symptoms, okay, will stay with you until you calm everything down. And especially if you become afraid of those symptoms, you start focusing on them, right? We focus on our symptoms because we go, all right, my heart's racing. Why is my heart racing? Now, if you're not panicked, you just focus on your heart racing and you get a concern. But when you're panicked, your heart is coming out of your chest in a way that you are not convinced that you're okay, which is why you go to the ER. Lots of people who suffer from panic wind up in the ER. I was in the ER anywhere from 3 to 5 times, which is probably not a lot in all the years that I suffered from it. But it took convincing that I was okay. I was to the cardiologist because I became very fixated on my heart, because my heart beated so much. I just wasn't convinced that I was safe. So I needed to go to the cardiologist. And that's what I recommend for anyone who has panic disorder, okay? Now, with panic, we are not convinced that we're okay. And even with anxiety, if you're feeling a symptom, okay, and you're not 100% sure why you have this symptom, I mean, you're going to focus on that symptom. And that symptom, what it's going to do is when you feel the symptom, you're going to tell yourself, I don't like this symptom. I don't like it when it's there. I don't know why it's there. Or maybe you know why it's there, but you're not convinced that this symptom, you're safe from it. What if the doctor's wrong? What if they missed something? As you do that, guess what you're doing? You're keeping yourself in this anxiety cycle. You're still signaling the vagus nerve, the central nervous system, the brain. You're signaling it that you're still in some kind of danger. It's going to keep you in this cycle, and you're still going to be in fight or flight. So does that make sense, Candy? And you're saying even if you're not anxious, listen, if you weren't anxious, you wouldn't be sending out these signals, and you wouldn't be in fight or flight, okay? If you're not anxious at all, then and you're having symptoms, I would definitely get to the doctor, because then if your symptoms are not anxiety, then they must be something else. I'm just saying. That's why it's important to get to a doctor to understand what your symptoms are, so that the doctor can say, hey, this is just anxiety. It's just panic attacks. And so that when you do feel it, you can calm everything down. So getting back to panic for just a second. So it's not just about health. There are things like caffeine, alcohol. Caffeine and alcohol can mimic panic attacks. All right. So if somebody who drinks a lot of caffeine, who intakes a lot of alcohol, or a lot of sugar drinks, those like energy drinks, that can make your heart pound out of your chest and mimic a panic attack. I remember one Easter, I think I was I stopped having panic attacks. I still had some anxiety, but I think I didn't have panic attacks. I believe this happened after I overcame panic attacks, and I will get to that. Don't worry. But I had a lot of alcohol. I was hosting Easter. I must have had like 3 glasses of red wine. And, it's Easter. I had chocolate. I love chocolate. I'm a chocoholic. So I had a ton of chocolate and I had alcohol. By the time my guests left, and I'm one of those, I can't go to bed until my house is spotless, right? My heart was coming out of my chest. And thank God at that time, I understood panic attacks and I understood anxiety. because otherwise I'd be back in the ER. My heart was coming out of my chest, all because of what I consumed. So I had to talk myself down, and then I was like, Carla, you can't do this. You can't. Obviously, my body is sensitive to the. I don't drink. I'm not a drinker. I drink socially, very socially, just during holidays. But my body's not used to the alcohol, the caffeine, whatever, and boom, there you go. It mimicked a panic attack. And also, panic attacks come on with very traumatic experiences in your life. Now, a lot of people I know have had, let's say, death in the family. And I've been told a death, very traumatic or stressful experience in your life, like the death of a family, being told that you have cancer. Now, I've been told both. And the diagnosis of my health with cancer, definitely not knowing what I was experiencing, what was going for me. And I've heard people say the death of their loved one has brought up panic. And I recently lost my dad. That did not bring up panic for me. However, I am an anxiety coach now, and I know panic, anxiety very well. So I knew how to deal with all that. But I want to tell you, if my father passed away about a decade ago, I don't know. I don't know how that would have affected me. Like, I'm not sure that I would be as good as I am right now, taking it as well as I am. I've been very emotional, but I've gotten very good at building resilience and understanding and forming my relationship with God, and just understanding how to take control of what I can and letting go of what I can't. But at least a decade ago, if my father passed any time before then, it would have been very hard. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why I had panic is because in 2004, I was still dealing with panic, and my grandfather passed away, and I was very close to my grandfather. Ooh, I'm getting emotional just saying that. Wow. And yeah, I started actually insomnia. It really took a toll on me. Because I think I didn't overcome my panic attacks until about 2006. So, a very stressful event could bring on panic because it's sudden, it's traumatic, and anything sudden and traumatic is going to set you off. So the brain, okay, you're thinking with the part of the brain that holds the fear is the amygdala. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but there's that part of the brain, the emotional part of the brain, where the emotions take over, the amygdala, all the emotions start there. And you get very hyper vigilant to stress. Any stressful event, you start with high stress, but then any stressful event just adds on. You adds on to the thoughts, to the negative intrusive thoughts that are going through your mind. It adds on to the body symptoms. And if you don't understand, okay, this is how to overcome, all right? Panic, anxiety, panic. I mean, you want to overcome it. The way to overcome is to understand it. Seriously, you cannot overcome something you don't understand. It's just that simple. You don't understand what anxiety is and why you have it. How are you going to overcome it? So this is why I go in the group and I try to bring you awareness, um, and a lot of insight about anxiety so that you can take action to overcome. Um, so when I started understanding what panic was, I started really getting good at understanding that I needed awareness. And I understood that panic was the fear of fear. And I started to talk to myself differently, because I was being very negative and I was really focused on how I felt. And I really had to convince myself that I was safe, that I was okay. So I had to learn, number one, panic is not going to kill you. Because I know a lot of you were like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. You're not going to die. No one has ever died from a panic attack. So I hope that brings relief to some of you, or if not all of you, who suffer from panic. And you're not going to go crazy. You're not. Because that feeling that you feel in your body is just the intense emotion. It's all your hormones and neurotransmitters, and it's just your body reacting to everything being off balance. All right. But the way through that is to understand that your mind is trying to protect you, is trying to help you to survive. And it is up to you to change, to do something different, okay? To change how you are going to react to this stressor that is going on. You know, when we can finally tell our minds, I'm okay. As I was saying before, I don't have a lion chasing me. All right. This is traumatic. This is very stressful, but I'm going to be okay. But when we keep telling ourselves, I'm going to be okay. I don't know if I can cope with this. I don't know if I can deal with this. This is what keeps you in the anxiety cycle. Does that make sense, ladies? For those of you who are on with me, is this all making sense what I'm saying? And for those who are in the replay, always let me know if you need more clarification, if there's anything else I can say to make it sound, if you need more clarification, make it sound a little bit better to you. I hope I'm explaining this well for you. Okay. Oh, thank you, Molly. Okay, great. So panic, will stay in a panic state. Well, that's the other thing. I forgot to mention that before. When I was explaining the difference between panic and anxiety, the thing is, I told you that with panic, we feel this intense, right? This intense, sudden surge of anxiety, these chemicals in our body, okay? But you peak and it kind of comes down. You don't stay there very long, all right? But with anxiety, okay, it builds up over time. And what happens is it stays with you a little bit longer, okay? Panic eventually will subside. Now, see, the thing is, I was always in a panic. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was in a panic state a lot. And when I wasn't panicked, I was high anxiety, because I was always like, what if it comes back? How am I going to cope? How am I going to deal? And then I would get panicked again. So although it came down, it didn't take much for me to get back. I literally spent years trying to find the right medicine. I was on many medicines, 4 at a time, actually, at one point, just to help me to function. And I would pace all about my house, pacing everywhere. My mother said, "You look like a caged animal," because I had so much of that anxious energy in me. I didn't know where to go with it. I didn't know what to do with it. I was just all over the place. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't do anything. Like, it was so hard. And I had to be there for my kids. I didn't know what to do. I was an at-home mom. I had babies at the time. It was the hardest thing I had to do. I will reiterate, I'd rather give birth than go through that again, okay? And birth was not easy. So, so let me tell you, what did I do to finally overcome panic? And I mean, I overcame it. I have never had a panic attack again since the last time in 2006. My anxiety has never gotten that high that I reach panic levels ever since 2006. We're 2025, so that's almost 20 years without a panic attack. So yay. I mean, that's great. So listen, okay? Let's get into that, okay? Now, as I said, awareness is key. You have to understand, okay, what anxiety is, what panic is, how it starts. Okay? Having that awareness is what helps you to understand how to stop it. When you start feeling these intense feelings of fear, all right? What is to do is to be able to say to yourself, I feel fearful. I can feel the surge of the chemicals, or I feel my heart racing. I'm feeling panicked right now. So what can I do? All right. So the next step would be to get really present, because that's all you got, ladies, the present time. There's no other. Present's all you got. In the present time, okay, I don't have a lion chasing me, but then again, my heart is coming out of my chest like I do, all right? So what can I do so that I can tell the central nervous system that I'm okay? Thank you for trying to protect me. I'm safe. Your survival is what's important, okay? That is what your mind and body is always trying to do, to get you to survive. I hope that will make sense. So what can I do right here in this present time to tell my mind, my body, yeah, I'm safe? So the thing is to feel those symptoms, sit with those symptoms, and ride the wave of fear. Ride the wave of fear. So what helps? Well, I learned tools. I mean, first of all, breathing. Okay. Now I understand breathing is very hard to do sometimes. The more you're on that anxiety scale, the more fear you feel, the more panicked you are. I was hyperventilating. I could barely take in a breath. I mean, when you're hyperventilating, you're already over breathing, right? So how do you start doing these breathing exercises? Well, you don't. And let me explain that to you. What I learned, okay, I read this in a book, and it sounded so counterintuitive, because when you're anxious, I mean, like panicked, and you feel you can't breathe, the last thing you want to do is hold your breath, right? But what I found was holding my breath was the key to overcoming this. So I got good at, when I was and I felt I couldn't breathe, I would actually hold my breath for as long as I could and let everything slow down. Now I know that sounds scary, because you already think I can't breathe and I'm gonna faint, or I'm gonna die from not breathing. But that's not true. Okay? You can breathe. You're over breathing. All right. And the other thing is, if you are to faint, all right, because sometimes when we over breathe, we feel the pins and needles. We're not breathing properly. We feel pins and needles. We feel dizzy, right? We think, oh, we're not getting enough oxygen. Am I going to have a stroke? Am I going to faint? If you faint, so what if you faint? Okay. If you faint, you know what your body does? It automatically breathes. Your body will automatically start breathing. So don't worry if that was to happen. All right. You will breathe. Okay. So I held my breath. And then eventually I learned, okay, I'm not so afraid of this anymore. You know, like I was able to breathe. And all that energy inside of me, I learned was just my reaction to the fear, to all the chemicals. So I got good at exercising. Okay, exercising is absolutely key to panic. All right. I was fixated on my heart. And I thought, how like are you sure I'm never going to have a heart attack? Like I couldn't believe it. Then I spoke to a relative who's had both anxiety and panic, you know, and had a heart attack. She says that they're so different, Carla, okay? And the one thing that I learned, all right, from science is not only are the sensations different, but if you are having a true heart attack, guess what you can't do? I mean, if you talk to people, do you have a relative who's had a heart attack, or maybe you've had a heart attack before? When you have a heart attack, it's you could barely walk. I mean, you can't just get up and walk around. You can't do burpees and sit-ups and pull-ups and like you're not working out. You're not doing jumping jacks. And so when I started having regular panic attacks, and I learned this, right? I would feel it coming on. I would run up and down my stairs. I would just do some jumping jacks. I would run in place. And I would say, see, Carla, it's not a heart attack. There's no way you would be able to do this if you had a heart attack, right? If you were having a heart attack. So eventually, this all clicked in my mind. You can breathe and you're not having a heart attack. So I didn't become as fixated because I was quite the checker. I was constantly checking my watch, taking my heartbeat. My heart's beating so fast, and I would be so fixated on how fast my heart was beating, right? I would wake up in the morning in piles of sweat if I did sleep, because I developed insomnia. If I did sleep, I would be in piles of sweat. My heart would be coming out of my chest. And yes, and in my sleep, I would feel anxiety or panic in my sleep. And it was crazy. Do you ever wake up feeling unreal? I can't explain what I'm saying, feeling like you about to fall out? Do you mean like feelings of what is it called? Depersonalization. I'm sorry. Like you feel like you're in a movie, like you feel like things are not real. Is that what you're talking about, Shanika? Just let me know. Just give me a little bit more explanation. But so I was feeling my panic, like even in my sleep. So what became necessary is to really understand what drove my fear. Okay. Panic is fear. What am I so fearful of? I mean, so I was fearful of death. I was fearful of the unknown. So I had to become really good now at what can I control, what can't I control, and what do I need to give to God, what needed acceptance, what needed for me to surrender to God. These were all things that were on my mind that helped me. So, but let's let's understand that you have control of calming yourself down. So when you start feeling those panicky feelings, okay, having that awareness, I'm being panicked right now, okay, getting in the present time, how you talk to yourself, you can talk yourself into panic, or you can talk yourself out of panic. But your thoughts, what you're telling yourself really matters, okay? It really does matter. But the thing is, even if you tell yourself, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, and you don't believe it, and you still feel your heart beating, and you still think, oh, my heart, I can't get it to calm down. And you don't believe that you're okay, you don't believe you're safe, it's still going to go. Okay. So, what we need to do is get really good at practicing things like progressive muscle relaxation, the breathing techniques, like I told you, like I held my breath. And once you get good at calming things down, you could do other breathing techniques like the box, where you count the four. Breathe in for, hold for four, blow out for four, hold for four, breathe in for four, hold for four, blow out for four, hold for four. Or you could do 5-7-8, where you breathe in for 5, hold for 7, blow out 8. These are all like breathing techniques that you can do to help get the breathing under control. But what they also do, it's not just about getting the breathing under control. It's a way of telling the central nervous system, the brain, to calm everything down. And the more you do that, the more you feel the sensations, ride that wave, get present, immediately do something to calm everything down. You're reprogramming. You're telling the central nervous system that every time we have this feeling, every time we're in this situation, this is what we do. Does that make sense, ladies? Can you put a 1 in the chat if this makes sense? Or if you need any clarification? Is this all making sense to you? What you just said, death and things I can't control. What about that, Shanika? Yeah, I mean, like, yes, okay, Marley, thank you. Great. The fear of death, the fear of not being able, of things beyond you that you can't control. Um, you know, um, that requires, what, as I said before, what can I control? And if, I mean, maybe, I don't know when everyone jumped on, but, you need to watch this from the beginning. If you but I talked about control, what you can control, what you can't control. And the thing is, what you can take control of, that's what you control. Okay. And that's why I was going over the central nervous system, because that's what we could eventually get control of. How we, what we can do to get in control of the emotions, telling the central nervous system that you're safe, and change your reaction to what it is that you're experiencing, because your thoughts will influence how you feel, that influence what you experience. Okay, so when you know that equation, you can understand what to change and how to change it. Okay, so what eventually happened for me is that I got really good at, I mean, even though I knew what to do, okay? Like I was really researching this and I got really good at what to do. I had to really work at calming down the central nervous system. And at first it just wasn't working. Like I was doing how to I was working to really work at how to deal with the anxiety, panic that I felt. But the things that I was doing, we have to understand this is the process that you're going through. And sometimes it takes a while, okay, until you have total acceptance, until you understand what you're doing and have, I shouldn't say it that way, until you have total understanding of the whole process, why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, okay? And you give yourself that grace. You start trusting in the process, in your ability, and you surrender. Now, what do I mean by that? And some of you have heard this story and some of you have not because you're new to me, okay? The thing is, one day, because I would go like days now of not having so much panic, just anxiety, but not so much panic. And then the panic would come back, all right? And then I would be like, okay, so I was getting frustrated. When is this panic finally going away? So one day I got totally frustrated. I laid on my bed, and you may have heard this. I was like a starfish on my bed. And I literally said, God, just that I'm done. Like, all right, and panic, everything, just like take me now. Just like I'm done. Take me now. And I surrendered. Okay. Now, when I mean surrender, this is more than just surrender is a hard concept to get. Because it's more than just acceptance. It's more like I was telling God, either take me now or like I'm done with this. I just totally surrendered to all this. If it's gonna kill me, let it kill me. Just done. Like I didn't care anymore. I'm done. And I totally surrendered. It was, and what happened was, remember when I talked about a wave, ride the wave? A wave of fear went from my head to my toes. It just went through me. And I was like, all right, I feel it. This is it. It went from my head through my toes. I didn't think about it. I didn't care. And then it never happened again. Never, ever, ever happened again. And it's almost 19 years ago. It's like 19 years ago. Yeah. Because I felt that wave of fear. I didn't put any emotion to it. I didn't put any thought to it. I just rode the wave, surrendered to it, understood right there and then, you know what? This really isn't going to kill me. This is just intense fear. What am I fearing? And the thing was, I was no longer afraid of the feelings. So I wasn't afraid of the fear. So panic never came back. Still had anxiety, okay? But my anxiety was more like from 1 to maybe 7, okay? I still had to let go of my anxiety, if that makes sense. I still was getting anxious about things, but no more panic. Because panic is the fear of fear. When I let go of fearing what I was feeling and the thoughts that were going through my head, and I just surrendered to it. What was I fearing? I let go. Does that make sense, ladies? And I understand that right now, maybe because you haven't surrendered, I know you're thinking, oh yeah, that's a lot harder, easier said than done. No, it's not easy. Because, let's face it, I had to, I surrendered in order to surrender. Like, I didn't care what happened. And that included death. Like, my fear of death at that point, everything just went out the window. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. So the other thing that happened, okay, and this is becoming a long live again. I know I give such long lives, but I have so much to say. Just bear with me, ladies. Just bear with me. So the other part of this is not just a science. It's also, I formed my relationship with God. Like, I understood in that moment, okay, that there is only so much I can control, okay? Um, and there is a God in heaven, and this is, you know, there is a God in heaven who is with me, helping me, guiding me, protecting me. But sometimes it's hard to trust in something that you can't see, right? I mean, that's what faith is, right? Faith is trusting in something, you know, that we don't see, that we don't, we just know it in our heart to be true. But yeah, so I had to surrender to that, but I had to grow more in my relationship with God. So what I did was, I got good at turning to the Bible and finding verses in the Bible that pertain to my situation. Um, and these, I'm going to tell you some of those verses that I told myself over and over and over. And these verses really helped me. Like, whenever, now, I no longer had panic anymore, okay? Like, I started, before I surrendered, I did start saying these verses, okay? But after I surrendered, it became more evident to me. I mean, I grew in faith. It became more evident to me that I mean, not doing this on my own. I do have help. And I need God in ways that I never knew. Like, I was trying to do a lot of things on my own in my human form, um and I needed to surrender. So part of that surrender is to understand that there is a God that is helping you, and we need to trust in him. So let me tell you some of these things that I told myself, and hopefully, hearing some of these Bible verses, you will they will help you as well. So if you don't have pen and paper handy, you can always watch the replay, and turn into your own Bible, and you can figure this out. Okay, so Isaiah 41. When I first read this, it brought me like some kind of comfort, that is, well, Isaiah 41:10 in particular says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will keep you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." So what that told me, first of all, is, God says in the Bible over and over and over, we should fear not. We should fear not. But yet we do. Why? Because we're not trusting. These passages that I'm going to read you, ladies, they promote trust in God. Okay? He is always with us. He gives us strength and courage to endure those trials that we go through. We're just not trusting, not just trusting in him, but we're not trusting in ourselves, in our capability. So Isaiah 10, it tells us that God is with you. We are not to fear. He's going to strengthen you and help you. He will uphold you. But you need to trust that he's there doing that. Psalm 23:4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Even in death, God is with you. He gives you everything you need to get through every situation. He's always with you. We don't need to fear. When you know who's walking with you, walking beside you, what are we fearing? Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Wherever you go. Anywhere, everywhere. You could get on a plane. He's with you on the plane. You can go across the world. He will be with you. He never leaves you. He never stops. Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. Tell God what is on your mind. What are those fears that you face? Give them to Him. When I was very fearful, I got really good at being like, God, I know you're with me, but I'm feeling this fear of this, whatever it was that I was going through. And I know that you're with me, but I'm having a hard time dealing with it. Thank you that you're always with me and that you give me everything I need. And I would ask Him to take the darkness from my mind and unharden my heart and increase my faith and help me to understand what it is that He wanted me to do. You know, Psalm 34:4. I sought the Lord, and He answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. He delivers you from all your fears. He delivers you. He always will. You have to seek Him first. Put your trust in Him. 2 Timothy 1. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of love, power, and self-control. I have a sound mind. You have a sound mind. This 2 Timothy 1, helped me with panic attacks. Because when I thought I was losing my mind, I would tell myself, you have a sound mind. You have a sound mind. Over and over, I would speak God's truth. I don't have a spirit of fear. Fear does not come from God. He gave me a spirit of love and power, self-discipline, control. It depends on what Bible, you go to. I have a sound mind. Over and over, I would tell myself that. Now, this is something I tell myself more now. Psalm 56:3. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. Because I don't really get anxious so much anymore. You have heard me talk about anxiety. When my dad passed away, I did not feel panicked, but I had some anxiety here and there. But I know what anxiety is. I was able to diffuse it immediately. And I did have some bouts of insomnia, was able to get back on track and be able to sleep again. But Psalm 56 was my help. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you, because that reminded me, Carla, who are you trusting? It's a lack of trust. Trust. And it just really reinforced everything. John 14. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. But let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. We have the peace of God. God is with us. He's always with us. We don't need to be afraid. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Know who walks beside you. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Another thing that when I feel, again, when I feel discouraged, or I feel, you know, like, why, and I'm maybe not trusting, I'll tell myself that I can do all things through him who gives me strength. I remember, who's in control, who's in charge, okay? Who delivered me from all of this. I mean, I did my part, but I believe that, we stay stuck until we learn our lesson. We have to understand that God's trying to promote us. We're not going through this because of punishment. So, sometimes you think, maybe God's punishing me. No, God never punishes you. All right. The thing is, but what he will do is he wants you to build endurance. Okay. He's got a plan for you, for sure. But we need to build endurance sometimes, and we need to go through trials so that we can better do what he has planned for us. If you told me a decade ago, oh, Carla, you're going to be a coach and you're going to help other moms overcome anxiety, I'd laugh in your face. I'd be like, what? No, come on. I mean, like, I was having some success a decade ago, but the thought of, at my age, going back to school and dealing, because I have social anxiety too, so dealing with other moms, going on camera, there were like no pictures of me on Facebook. Like, you could ask any one of my family and friends, if they said, oh, put a picture of you on Facebook, I'd be like, no pictures of me on Facebook. Like, I hated to take photographs, video. Now look at me, right? Look what I had to overcome in order to do all this. So if you said that this is what my life would be a decade ago, I'd be like, yeah, okay, sure. I wouldn't believe you. So God is our strength. His presence, okay, is what gives us courage to face challenges with resilience. That is what I work with my clients to do, to build resilience, because stress is a part of life. We're always going to have stress, ladies, especially as moms. You're always going to have stress in your life. So the biggest present you could give yourself is to understand how to have resilience, which is your ability to deal with the stress, okay? To have trust that he is in control, and he equips you with everything you need to face those trials. When we don't trust in him, trust in our ability, this is where we feel the fear. This is where we start questioning ourselves. We start doubting. When we have that doubt, we get anxious, and when we go straight to panic attacks, it's because we're just not trusting in anything. We're facing this intense fear straight away, and until we can come down from it and start thinking with more of a logical mind, and start maybe saying these verses to ourselves and reminding ourselves, I have no control over this. I need to give up control and only take control of what I can. So we'll talk about this next week, because ladies, I already know what we're going to do next week. Well, we're going to talk about health and anxiety. But, I mean, that's one of the things that controls our fear. So when you understand what you're fearing, and do I have control over this? What don't I have control over? What needs to be accepted and given to God? What do I have to adjust, adapt to? These are all things that you need to work on. And this will help you to overcome panic attacks, overcome anxiety, and start feeling that peace that surpasses all understanding in your life. All right, ladies, that's what I got for today. I'm already over an hour. I don't think anybody's on with me that started with me, but I see there's a couple of you still on. Are there any questions? I'll do a short Q&A. I'm going to just go back and see if there's any questions that were left. I already answered Candy. And Candy, if I answered you well and you're happy with your answer, let me know. If there's anything else that you want to hear from me regarding that, let me know. And I see, there was a question of how to deal with the personalization. This is not about that. So I don't want to go off on a whole different thing about depersonalization. Maybe that is a future live. That's probably something that I need to visit. And Shanika, you were talking about, I think that's what you were talking about, depersonalization, these unreal feelings. And, maybe that is just another live I have to do. And I don't see any other questions. And if there's no other questions, I'm just going to end the live, and I will get back to you next week with a brand new live talking about a brand new subject that's going to help you to get more awareness of anxiety and how to cope with it, how to like overcome it and get your life back. And ladies, I mean, everything that I say in my lives is going to help you, but I understand inflammation can be really hard and you need more support. And if you need a lot of support and accountability in what you do, reach out to me, let me know, and let's talk about how we could work together so that I can get you to overcome this, because you can overcome this. This is not something that you need to live with. Anxiety takes over your life, and there's no, the only thing that's going to keep you stuck in anxiety is not having an understanding, not having that lack of awareness, not understanding what it is, why you struggle with it, and just not understanding, maybe not having the right support either. Having the right support is very essential. So ladies, if you need more support, you really want greater understanding of what you're, please get in touch with me. Let 2025 be your year to overcome this and get your life back. Come off those medicines that you're on, that you hate being on. I know. And I know this is a question a lot of you ask me, but no, I'm not on medication. I came off medication years ago, over a decade ago. Because as I understood what anxiety was, I started growing in confidence and resilience. And I knew I didn't need medication anymore. I mean, I kept some of my medication handy just in case, but I never needed to take it. And nor do I need to take it anymore. I mean, even with my little spurts of anxiety here and here that I've had, I know too much about anxiety and I was able to diffuse it immediately. And that's what having the skills, the strategies that I know can do for you. I understand how to really tell that central nervous system that I'm safe. Okay. I have tools and strategies that I want to share with you. So let's work together to nip it in the bud and have you overcome, so that you can deal with those situations in life and be the mom, the wife, the daughter, the sister, the friend that you have always aspired to be. Take care. Be well. See you next time, ladies. Bye.